Let's get a wine shot. Oh, who's she?
We're getting forgetful. Yeah. I live just like 2 minutes. Me and John put mum in these. Oh no, Sally Oaks is here for a careless
Maybe come see you tonight. Fuck yeah.
Oh, that's disappointing. Oh shit, there isn't some of the other bands.
A really small community which kind of grew, flowered and then fragmented in the space of 2 or 3 years.
Because it was all sort of based around loose friendships anyway. It was people that were doing things as individuals or different collectives already that just kind of came together and crossed over.
Creating spaces for yourself, for there to be this collaborative approach to doing things, making your own flyers, cutting out that middleman.
It wasn't anything as local as a community. I mean, for me, DIY was a really international thing.
It's certainly about independence, doing things in the manner in which you want to do them and in the manner in which you feel comfortable, so that you have control over that space.
That's a Sarah Rose flyer. That's nice.
The design's really good, but Lee was probably rushing me or something.
Your deadline.
Yeah.
But this is a better Dave virtual example.
Oh, thanks, Lee.
There's another Lee Jones classic.
No, it's Anthony Saunders classic.
Is it?
The other day.
I liked that one. Which one?
I think the first time I heard someone talking about Help Yourself Manchester, it was probably not that long after I'd met Lee, and he was telling me about this excellent idea that him and Joe had on a bus.
I think he was searching for inspiration on one of the Oxford Road buses, and I think saw the thing with the metros and saying "Help yourself."
It rings a bell for me, yeah. Rings a bell.
Definitely rings a bell.
Looking back, it didn't feel like a thing, like that could be labels. I'm not saying that in a sort of grand sense that it was beyond words. I'm just saying, looking back, it doesn't feel like something which sticks up as a moment, as something which I can look back on and go, that was a time, that was a moment, that was a thing. It was just sort of something that happened.
It's a group of people that were putting on gigs sort of around about the same time in Levenshulme and different parts of Manchester, but it wasn't like a decision to be a collective or anything. It was just a group of friends that some of us sometimes would do gigs together and sometimes would do it sort of individually, but it was always about DIY music.
DIY is simply based on a model of participation. It's just the punk ethos of anyone being able to get involved in music, and not just that anyone can be, but it's desirable that people do get involved.
Around 2003, I believe, late 2003 was when we began.
I never felt that it was a name for a group of us. I thought it was a name for a website.
We listed the website on the flyer as a point of call for information. It was never Help Yourself Manchester Presents, as in Help Yourself Manchester Collective Presents. And we also didn't define it on the website either. We didn't have a brief description of what we are, who we were. You would simply log on to Help Manchester and there'd be a list of gigs and then a list of individual contacts for whose gig it was primarily.
It was like, do you want to go and see a gig in someone's living room? I remember getting on a bus one night in sort of winter, getting on what I now know is the 192, which I've gone dozens of times. It was the first time I'd ever been on it, and it was pissing down. And we got the bus down to just outside Albert Road, got off and made our way to this house, and we were all sort of laughing about the fact that it was number 69. And when we got there, it was just like, it was a bit weird. There was just, loads of sort of, I guess it would be referred to as alternative people, hippies, crusties, whatever. It was really interesting, it was all very welcoming. I think actually we paid £1 in, and I remember being in the kitchen of 69, and Dave had made loads of bread, little baps or something, and I don't think they were really very good, but everyone was sort of eating them with like margarine from the skip or something, and it was really interesting because we turned up and there was food there, and they were just saying like, have some food and just help yourself.
Helpyourself Manchester is probably Lee's definition of who's involved.
In my head, I suppose I see the central people as being Lee and Anthony, because I think they just sort of did more of the web pagey stuff.
I think it probably took Dave, depending on what gig he put on, was part of Help Yourself or not. And it was probably true for me as well, like whether it possibly suited Lee's credentials or not.
But I just, because, I provided a list, I wrote down what each place was. Yeah. So I can read. I could do it off the top of my head, but...
No, go for it if you want to read the list, that's great.
Conventional music venues in Manchester city centre, a practice room, squatted social centres, an art gallery, a community centre, various basements, living rooms and bedrooms in Levenshulme and Longsight. One gig in Liverpool, a pub function rooms, a gig in Bolton. This is around the same time as we started doing the gigs in houses, was the gig in Liverpool and a gig in Bolton, and that would indicate how scarce and difficult it was to get venues at the time. A 16th century building in Longsight, I think Slade Hall, and the Bowls and Snooker Club in Levenshulme.
What do you remember about Mambo Art Centre?
They did a lot of youth work. I can't remember, there was quite a lot of art on the walls and that sort of thing. So
Capital City Dusters. They were a disco band that I think Lee put their gig on. I remember that being a really fun gig. I remember one member of the band wearing a full boiler suit and a red t-shirt and then just being really cartoonish and kicking his legs out and having this really sort of boyish kind of exuberance. That was a fun gig.
Going in there to book gigs was always quite daunting. You had to go to the back of the venue, and then the people who ran it sat in this tiny office. It kind of was like going down into a cavern or something. You had to go down these steps and it was quite dark.
What do you think about it being a pizza place now?
I don't know. I haven't tried the pizza. Maybe if there's good pizza, it depends on the, if there's good pizza, then it's fine, isn't it? I don't know. It's sad. There are a million pizza places, and it was quite. To have a place like that in the city centre is quite unusual, I think. To have a place that has some kind of character and doesn't seem to be particularly commercially orientated. It was just a bit silly in a way, and yeah, a bit of an anomaly. And I think I like that. But there's nowhere quite like the Retro Bar. There's all kind of red satin seats, and some kind of weird kind of corrugated metal behind where the bands play. It has a good feel. Again, it's completely different from, say, the Klondike or the Mumbo, or it has a kind of like a sort of sleazy feel.
We met each other at Ladyfest Glasgow, which was in 2001.
One of the earlier gigs that we put on was a Ladyfest. Was it a Ladyfest benefit or?
It was for Ladyfest London.
You were meeting new people all the time, even though I think quite a few people in Manchester, apart from a couple, weren't actually involved with playing music themselves, but were more interested. Either they didn't play instruments or they weren't playing in bands. So in a way, like putting on gigs, creating the flyers and making those connections with the bands was almost like a creative act in itself for people who were really, deeply interested in music and loved music, but weren't able to play music.
You wouldn't be organising gigs for them, without friendships developing in some way. Steve Malley, a friend of mine, someone I'm still in contact with now, and this is a fellow who's been around. Well, he's in his 40s now, but he would have been, playing in punk bands, since the late 80s.
We played in a basement, maybe a quarter the size of this room, in the house, as I would remember it, where literally nobody else other than the band could get in, so everyone had to stand in the corridor. On a broad calculation, I would know I played over 500 gigs. That one sticks in mind. I can think of ones where you support bigger bands and bigger places, and it can be good, but it's gone. You can think of places where you go and play and the place is packed out and you get paid more money than you've ever made for the rest of the year, and it disappears. It's the ones where you go and meet nice people, and there's a ridiculousness to playing that loudly into the basement of someone's house, and then the communication and sort of interaction with everyone who was there is, to me, fundamentally what's good about playing music, travelling, meeting people. That sounds like a Miss World answer, but it is. I think that for me is the point now, is that embark rapidly into middle age. That's why I still do it.
I love the process of flyer making, and I had this really cut and paste way of doing flyers. So I'd do one design and I'd like it, but then I end up chopping a bit off that design, putting it onto another, and chopping up text from here and pasting it here, and then photocopying that, and then altering something with Tipex, and then putting a different font on top. There's some real craftsmanship, I think, in doing flyers.
Because of the internet, I think sometimes people won't make a flyer necessarily, but for me it's kind of part of the fun of doing a gig. My shitty rubbers. Look at that. A shitty piece of putty rubber. For me, I guess there maybe is kind of a certain aesthetic. Yeah, a certain aesthetic to it that kind of you can pick something out of a wall of posters, whether it's kind of, you know, so many posters are kind of glossy and what have you. That if you see something that is kind of hand drawn or printed in a certain way or photocopied even, it's kind of a bit of a surprise maybe.
Why was it called the Red House?
I guess the Red House is a blues thing.
But I assume none of these flats were here.
No, none of them. It was just the grottiest little building in the whole world.
Was it really small as well?
It wasn't that small, it was kind of like...
There were a number of rooms down there.
There was maybe like 7 or 8 practice rooms.
And there was just a lot of graffiti on the walls and just general dankness.
It had that excellent kind of squat vibe to it, pretty much. Even though I don't think it ever was squatted, was it? It was like, it was legit, as far as it could be.
Wow.
And the people were very warm and friendly. You know, it was probably off their head most of the time, but very, very friendly. Considering, you know, you were 18, you know, we're new to the city, people were very approachable, and you would go in the office and have a sit down, and people were great.
I practiced there a couple of times, but it was a terrible. I remember like using and playing there with Ollie and this other guy called Steve, and like beetles like started crawling out of my amp. It was
I did get cockroach. Yeah, I did get infested with cockroach just very late on.
Yeah,
but I think that's
must have been when we were there.
There were loads of gigs here. Like when there were loads and loads and loads.
And these are all the classic flyers, the classic punk show flyers. Bringing books to gigs so you can take the flyer home and like.
I never bought a book to a gig to put the flyer in it.
I did. I used to carry a Danger Mouse annual around with me, which I used to. I used to put flyers inside it. I used to carry around a stainless steel ruler and a razor blade.
Why?
For cutting the flyers up. And I cut the flyers up on the Danger Mouse.
In case everyone gave you any shit.
But eventually the Danger Mouse.
I do remember the Danger Mouse annual actually. Yeah.
No, there's something about Manchester that just can't keep itself going. Like the Red House are now flats. To me, this is a strip club. This is a pizza place, and like the Star and Garter is, you know, hanging on by its teeth.
You can also see where your lettering's gone wrong, which is an excellent excuse to get a typewriter out. I always like to try and have some typewritten element.
Nice.
Bollocks, I've gone wrong already. What else does it need to say? 8 PM start, or 8 PM. I'm going to get the old craft knife out. And metal ruler, whether those are.
Lee Jones style.
The tools of the DIY flyer maker's trade, exactly as pointed out by Lee Jones. They're too small, that'll mean we're going to the photocopy shop, which will be fun. And change. Is it warm outside? Okay, excellent. thing with me, shouldn't it?
That's probably quite.
These are the kind of beginner's mistakes I make every time I do this kind of thing. Do you want to
So, did you kind of take care of the PA as well? Because you had a collectively owned PA, right?
Well, we all sort of took turns in it. Anthony was quite good at organising and make sure that everyone paid, whereas I was a bit like, yeah, just use the PA, it's fine. But yeah, and there were a few people. It was like Daniel, Anthony, me, Joe, and Lee that all. I think we all put money into it and all used the PA.
We didn't have a central fund or anything, so we would. The PA we would hire out, so that was kind of the PA kind of was the central fund, I suppose. Yeah, I'd forgotten about the PA. Yeah, I just had a little ice cream tub.
It was generally.
It wasn't very much money going on.
Yeah, weren't that many funds, so to speak.
The kitty, as we called it. I kept the kitty, and I think basically my gigs were the gigs which made money. So it was a communal kitty in the sense that we would distribute it, but it was always the individual responsibility of whoever was doing the gig.
The band's expenses would pretty much be what we were taking on the door. It wasn't very often that we were like, oh, we've got loads of money, what should we do with it? Most of the time it was like, oh God, I've got to give this person £10 to get back to Leeds or whatever.
Lee and Sarah in particular, I remember one gig where it wasn't very well attended for whatever reason, and they do their side of things, and they tried to give us more money than was on the door, and absolutely refused, and it ended up giving the majority of it back because it was clearly they were losing money, and I think that's right to do as well.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that comes to people doing music that's not their job, it's not a source of income, it's not relying on it. So as long as you can get in the next town or whatever, you're doing it as hobby's not the right word, but as a passion, maybe much more of a vocation than a profession.
And I mean, I think this is a really good situation. This is almost a perfect situation in some ways, where it's like your kind of general practice of doing something is kind of a DIY practice because that's how you do it and how it's done. And you might not kind of look into the politics of like grassroots action or, kind of anarchism or self-organisation or whatever you want to call those kind of things that go on. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what you do call. For me, it involves a lot of different strands and things, and you could call any number of different things.
I think the influences came from a lot of places. For me, I was heavily influenced by Discord and Fugazi.
Being a little longer in the tooth than some of the people who were going. Britain in the 80s, coming out with the anarcho-punk side of thing, became very staid in terms of the only place that was happening, in my experience, this is my personal experience, was on an anarcho-punk, crusty, thrash metal kind of way. There wasn't enough diversity in the music, but it was apparent that a lot of people wanted that. I think it was clear certainly in the States and on the continent, it was much more diverse.
You also put on
Fugazi? No, Ian Mackay from the Evens played at the Klondike Club. He was in Fugazi. And Jerry Bush, who played on the last, he did second percussion on the last Fugazi record. As an 18-year-old who's really interested in music, it's great because these people are, you're cooking dinner and they're sleeping on your floors. Very quickly, any idea or notion of celebrity or kind of looking up to somebody is dispelled and becomes interesting characters.
Now we're on 8mm. Courtesy of this man. I cross my legs. And the night's brink appears where memory buckles. The street lamp's throws distended through heavy shafts of rain. Mercury. Goddamn man. Song of the everyman. Bristling Nova. Under shut eye. Shut up.
Lee had some kind of vision, maybe, of what he was imagining like a kind of a DIY community would be like. You know, kind of related to, I guess, like the kind of DC, like Washington DC, kind of like punk and hardcore scene. That's like a similar kind of aesthetic, I suppose. You know, I think, I don't know for sure, but I think that's why him and Ant ended up moving to Lev, and to a point to have like a house and with a basement and to do stuff in the house.
I mean, house gigs are, they're, I think, more of a kind of an idea that comes out of the sort of American punk and DIY scene, in response to kind of age restrictions in bars and things in America, and I think it isn't something that translates perfectly to gigs in Manchester all the time. I mean, there were some really fun house gigs, and sometimes they just kind of fell a bit flat.
Now that I'm thinking about it, and basically I'm thinking about the atmosphere around these DIY gigs, I'm not thinking about like Jabez Clegg or even the Academy or anything. I've seen some amazing bands in the Academy, famous bands. I can remember a couple of those as being very memorable, but the DIY gigs were just a different thing altogether, and it was just better. I just remember it being an amazing gig in the living room, which was upstairs in 69, was I think the biggest room in the house, and they're quite nice Victorian houses. You know, they've got like 2 stories and a basement and stuff. So, and they've got like these quite tall ceilings. You know, so they're actually pretty good for putting on gigs. Really, the sound, well, generally, as with most gigs, too loud, but the atmosphere was just fantastic. I remember, and there was like there's the band, which were taking up like 50% of the floor space, and then there was like, I don't know, 50 people in the rest of the room, you know, and then people just sort of clinging onto the door frame and stuff, trying to see in. And Lee was stood up on top of the windowsill all through the gig and just sort of hanging on because there was no floor space, and like taking photos and stuff.
We'd met someone that lived at this incredible sort of Elizabethan mansion, I suppose, in Longside.
Yeah, we discovered Slade Hall through simply somebody who lived there come to some of the gigs at Alba Road.
And I think that was definitely one of the most, my sort of best memories, that we kind of, you know, were able to kind of, people sort of trusted us that much in a way to kind of let us into like this big group house, and then kind of organize, you know, put on a band night in their living room in this incredible house. And, you know, some of the bands, you know, we put on like Yago and stuff, and I think I'd seen Yago a few weeks before playing to kind of 1,000 people in the Czech Republic, and then, you know, they were playing one of their last ever gigs in Slade Hall, and that was kind of really, you know, that's the stuff I quite like to remember, really.
We played quite a lot of shows so far, and I think we never played in such an old house or anything like this, so this is just, yeah, thank you so much.
We discovered sort of the Klondike, and that was a really nice space to use, which was behind our house, so that was also useful. You don't have to hire vans or anything, you just carry the PA across the road.
We just asked. It was simple as that. We asked, and I suppose we were respectful, and we got on well with the people who ran it.
Tell a joke.
Don't look at me like that.
Hello. You're right.
All right, long time no see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did Chrissy say you on the phone?
No.
Because she just spoke to you.
Yeah, she just ran me. She didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Have you seen the function room?
Oh, we've not been in.
So this is where the gigs used to be?
Yeah. The chairs were never in the middle ones.
Yeah, they always used to tidy up.
No.
And we would. Now we played on stage.
And sometimes
that would be all laminated as well as stage. So
Usually in the middle or sometimes.
when would you want to film?
They're filming. Well, the way that I worked with Les anyway was flexible, because I know when we did larger shows, we'd bring in 200 people, a flat head of £5 a person, we would. Yeah, if we had £1,000 that'd never been discussed beforehand, that would always be decided on the night. So we three people to consider the venue, the organisers ourselves, and the band itself. So that'd be discussed on the night. So I think I would. I think we looked after the Klondike. We kind of treated them as a part of the picture, I suppose.
Very different from doing a house gig, because you had this weird thing where you had all these people, like older people that would go in there to play snooker and hang out in like what's essentially a working men's club, and then loads of like youngsters going making lots of noise in the next room. It's quite an interesting dynamic. But I think we fitted in and got on sort of reasonably well between those sort of groups.
Okay, best gig, seriously.
Best gig here. Oh, the super short French toast, without doubt.
A tailor of graves and subtle designs.
I think Sings that commented for the first time. I remember really, really enjoying that.
When you think of any particular gigs in that sort of Help Yourself period you particularly enjoyed?
Well, I would say
some of the house gigs were really amazing, just because it was a house gig, like Cat on Form in the living room.
I think it was the first gig we did in the living room at 69 Albert Road.
Flying Robots were really great live.
What? If I was to pick a UK DIY record, I'd probably pick the McWatt record.
We did a lot of gigs with Our Beautiful Ridiculous Plan, which was like a double bass and guitar duo playing really sparse, kind of melodic little tunes, really. It was sonically very different to a lot of the other things that was happening.
The bands, like all the guys from Burns, started doing other bands with Dave, so there was kind of Cornish Tin Mines.
Me and Zeke played the gig on Stuart's Kitchen Table. That was totally excellent. There's documentary evidence. There's photos of that, in fact, in Ant's little folder. God, we all look really young.
This one as well.
Oh my god, that's great.
Whoa, no way. Morgan, amazing. All in black hoodies as well in that one. That's
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. Laura, oh my god, is that Nick? That's Nick rocking his preppy look.
You both
Black
look
hoodie
so
over the
young.
shoulders. We all look really young.
Where is he?
Outside of 69, wow.
What a monkey.
And I've got my amazing mullet going on as well. Yeah. Where's that? Is that in the kitchen?
The kitchen of 69.
We want to talk about what happened at the time. Then for me, it was a group of friends who eventually kind of concentrated in one area, and I think the house was really, really important. It was everything more or less came together around 67 for me.
It became really difficult to get venues in town, and so part of doing house gigs was like, we've got this band we want to put on and we've nowhere to put them on. Let's just do it in the house, because actually only 20 people are going to come anyway, so why pay loads of money for a venue when you can do it in your house?
It was more like a wild party vibe here than at 69. I suppose that was the kind of thing, main difference perhaps.
Ironically, the only time the police turned up was the very last show there, Magic Markers.
Nightfall than you at 16.
Well, this is the thing. Well, these are the things. Things actually at times become serious because of the manner in which things were organised.
There wasn't a proper door being done. Some local scallies kind of gay crashed.
Very last gig in 69 Albert Road in the living room, because nobody actually took upon it themselves to actually do a door. We had some party crashes. What do you call it? Gay crashes.
Yeah,
gay crashes.
Kids.
And
party crashes.
and nobody else was gonna.
Party crashes.
Sorry.
Say party crashes.
Party crash. Gate crashes, and nobody else was going to ask them to leave, and they were making people feel uncomfortable. So I asked them to leave and got a knife pulled off, and that was the kind of shit which used to go on all the time, or quite often as a result of
that. That's quite a dramatic incident.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have come about in any gig in the ways that we used to do things, because we used to take responsibility. Well, we did. No, I think it's serious.
It is. I mean, it was a really serious incident.
Well, I could,
but it didn't happen all the time. It just happened once.
Yeah, but that was the same occasion for the 2x4. The local neighbour attacked somebody in here with a 2x4. Yeah, because they were just playing music and pissing off the neighbours.
But still, you do have a problem with house gigs in that you're trying to, and we weren't trying to make them private parties. We were trying to make them public to some extent. Well, we were trying to make them public, but then it's the question of how you manage that when people have expectations that if they go around to a house and there's music, it's a party. It's not. It's difficult.
But that's why we
manage expectations.
But we didn't. Well, we didn't approach the gigs in that manner. Even if the gigs were kind of really high energy and there was lots of loud music and even music afterwards, we always cut it to such a point that people were aware it wasn't a party, and the emphasis was that it was the music, the gig, people paid in, and that was the whole.
But some people are gonna. if they hear word that there's some kind of event going on in the house, they're going to assume it's going to be like a house party.
But we always you control that by the way that you organise things.
But it's very difficult to control it completely because people have certain expectations.
But we did. Every single gig that we did in a house, we controlled that.
Yeah, but nearly all the gigs that I went to in '69 were our circle of friends, our network. They weren't as public as
50, 60 people.
But they're still our friends.
No, we didn't know 50, 60
I can only really think of a couple that have. There was one Cat and Form gig had that many people.
20 gigs we did. In all the houses on Helpyourself Manchester, there's 20 gigs listed.
But
I'd be interested to have a look at that.
A couple that had shitloads of people at.
Can I say something though? It's exactly the same to our approach of establishing venues as we did in houses. Because what you would do is you would take a bill of bands, and you wouldn't have 3 loud bands. You'd have maybe 1 loud band, maybe 2. They'd play short sets, and that in turn would avoid those problems.
I think
you keep the noise to a minimum.
But I think the basic point is that we did think that. I think when we were in '69, we thought about this kind of stuff. We didn't just approach it from a perspective of we can do what we want. We
did what was possible.
We had an idea of being responsible. People have a right to organise their own culture, and it's difficult finding spaces, and so inevitably there are going to be some conflicts, but it's how you approach it overall, how you try and manage it, how you negotiate with people. I think we did try and do that. And I think Lee's right that we did talk to the neighbours and we did.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did have a really great way of doing things and organising stuff, but just on some level or another, I still think you're always going to have some element of conflict.
Yeah.
When you're making a lot of noise in a residential district continually. You know, I think about however great it was, like being able to rehearse every night of the week. On the other hand, I would have fucking hated to have been our neighbour. Anyone else have anything else to add?
No, come here. I know what we're going to do. I was just, when someone gets pulled off set.
See if that's the right kind of. Maybe that works. I'm going to go for it. Go 8 with the Pritt stick. Yeah, it's one of the things I really like about improvising music as well, as that kind of possibility of waiting to see what kind of comes out of certain possibilities or aesthetic decisions, choices. If you're listening to a piece of music or seeing a film, if you know what is 100% going to happen, if something is just repeating and following the same format, you get bored really, really quickly. Whereas if you have variation and like some surprise, then that's kind of the way to approach it, I guess. Ooh, text. I've carried on playing at gigs and putting on gigs and playing in bands and touring and doing all the things that I'd maybe, I suppose, learnt to do or learnt to find possible through being involved with Help Yourself or Levenshulme or whatever it was.
How did you get in contact with the vicar? And
I just called him up every day of the week for about 3 weeks till he answered the phone. I suppose the musical content is a little different, although not completely different to what it was. For me, it's not entirely different, but I suppose it is different. Different stuff in lots of ways.
Is the ethos the same, or is
I guess the ethos is I think in lots of ways the ethos is kind of the ethos. Like the ethos is, I think, stronger to my mind. And I always thought using like real community spaces was a really viable and really probably the way that stuff should be done.
Right. Yeah, we'll see you back next. Okay, yeah, see you soon. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I think there's probably not really a definite. There wasn't a definite start to it, and yeah, there probably wasn't a definite end to it either.
Yeah, I can't remember when the end point is. I mean, do we have that list?
November 2006.
November 2006. Right. Okay.
The last gig that we listed on the website was November 2006, which was 5 years after the first show which had been listed, which seemed appropriate. I wanted it no longer made as much sense to list the gigs under one banner, and I wanted to go and have my independence.
I suppose the point where we stopped writing Helpyourself Manchester on flyers was the point where the website subscription ran out, but and Lee was in charge of that, and I think he very much wanted to draw a line under things.
The way in which I wanted to organise my gigs in terms of the promotional material and also the spaces themselves and the time frame. Very clearly developed ideas, and that wasn't necessarily be shared within the group of people who were on the website together.
Do you think it's a shame that Lee doesn't do gigs anymore?
Yes, because I've always loved something about. I mean, I can criticise some of the ideology, but I've always loved Lee's that slight aspect of fanaticism to the way Lee approaches gigs, and he has been responsible for some really, really incredible gigs.
But to me, it wasn't like this is an end point of something that's been happening. It was kind of like stuff's been happening and it's really exciting, and now it's kind of, for me anyway, stuff is continuing to happen in a similar way, and an identical way to how it has been happening, apart from maybe some people are different or bands are different. Or
the gigs we put on was about that, looking at different ways to use the city and to make the city better. So I suppose that's what a lot of groups look to do.
Yeah, it's me wearing like 2 ruined t-shirts.
Oh, Adam.
John Collin, they're all in this one.
Joe.
I like that photo.
Stuart. Liam Stewart there.
That's a nice one of Adam.
Danny Mills.